PBS is under fire this week for what a group of diverse filmmakers claim is an over-reliance on documentary producer Ken Burns at the expense of people of color. An open letter to PBS chief Paula Kerger, signed by 130 or so filmmakers, accuses the network of supporting, quote, uninvestigated privilege, meaning Ken Burns pretty much does what he wants and PBS airs it. Over 4 decades, documentary filmmaker Ken Burns has produced about 200 hours of film, and PBS has been his platform.
Jackie is the original civil rights pioneer.
Burns' topics range from baseball to the Civil War to his latest 6 hours on Ernest Hemingway.
We've been thinking about Hemingway for literally decades.
But now a group calling itself BIPOC Makers, or Beyond Inclusion, has sent a letter to PBS chief Paula Kerger, criticizing the network for a lack of diversity, pointing directly to its exclusive relationship with Ken Burns.
I worked on this landmark, groundbreaking series about Asian Americans.
That's filmmaker Grace Lee, one of the people who signed the letter. Last fall, Lee wrote an essay making similar complaints about Burns and PBS, which helped get the Beyond Inclusion movement going.
We got 5 hours to tell 150 years of American history. Ernest Hemingway, one man, gets 6 hours of documentary prime time. So this kind of disparity is something that I wanted to call attention to.
Paula Kerger defended both Burns and PBS, saying Finding Your Roots producer Henry Louis Gates has gotten even more airtime than Burns. But Lee rejects the Gates comparison and says PBS has failed to air a diversity of voices.
There's no DNA match whatsoever to any of these boys.
The fact that a Burns documentary helped clear the names of the Central Park Five and that he gives voice to cultural and racial equity in all his films is apparently beside the point. Yeah, you know, Lylah, this group says that it wasn't about Ken Burns, but the essay from last fall and this letter, it's all about Ken Burns. There's no acknowledgement that his genre of long-form documentary has really made way for other who knew that people wanted to watch things that went 6 and 7 hours. And there's no acknowledgement of kind of his historical place in all this. It's all critical. And they didn't say which films, which filmmakers didn't have a voice because Ken had so much. And by the way, if you do the math, he's had 200 hours, but that averages out to 5 hours a year over 40 years.
I think Ken Burns does some incredible work. And I think that it's always tricky when you're talking about giving more opportunity to a diversity of people versus airing content that shows a diversity of views or a diversity of topics. And I think the line gets blurred here. I absolutely understand the complaint that people of color are not getting enough opportunity in the same way Burns, who has already had plenty of opportunity, seems to get even more. But in this case, I think you really need to consider what it is that's being shown. Personally, I probably wouldn't watch 6 hours of Ernest Hemingway. But I do watch a lot of other PBS shows that show a lot of other things. There's also a business aspect here. Ken Burns brings in money. People want to see him. He's familiar. He's like the big name actor in the box office film in a lot of ways. And I think that any station would be reluctant to drop a big draw just in order to offer opportunity to a lot of people. And I think that needs to change. But the risk has to be taken at some point. I'm just not sure when that'll happen.
Well, I don't want to criticize Ken Burns either because I think he's terrific. But what I would point out is that even though he only averages out to 5 hours a year, there's only a certain amount of space that PBS is giving to that type of documentary. So in order for women and people of color and other filmmakers to get into that lineup, in addition to Ken Burns, they would have to the PBS would have to fundamentally change what they do, and I'm not sure that they want to do that. PBS has 2 different missions, and one of them is to appeal to viewers and pull in money, which Lylah alluded to. But the other is that, this isn't one of the commercial networks. They're also supposed to be providing access to different communities. And I think this is one of those cases where we're seeing a clash between those 2 different missions. And frankly, there needs to be some way to resolve that so that there is a more diverse lineup of documentaries. I'm not going to make a suggestion as to how that be done, but I do think it's important that it be done.
Well, the content is diverse, but the people who produce it are not. That's what you're saying, yeah.
Right. I mean, I think, look, it's not just a matter of hours. PBS does not have a ton of money, right? Their budget for this kind of documentary work, I've had friends who sold projects to them, is not super high. And my guess is Ken Burns gets a very large disproportionate amount of their budget. So there is sort of decisions that get made here that do impact other filmmakers and what they can do and what they can sell to PBS. And look, I think these guys have a point. I mean, Grace Lee made the point in her original letter that the year that she got 5 hours to do Asian Americans, they gave 30 hours to Ken Burns to do other things, right? So there is, I think, maybe some failure to have a real balance here. And look, I'll say the thing that's probably sacrilege on PBS, but I mean, Ken Burns is good, but so are a lot of by people of color, and they can do great work. And I don't think we have to just rely on Ken Burns. It is synonymous, Ken Burns with PBS. They could expand their lens a bit here.
Yes, I want to say that I believe I'm the only person in this discussion that not only has done long-form documentaries over several hours on PBS and consulted for other series, also having been a part of many of these pipeline programs that are supposed to, at the end, get more persons of color into the PBS pipeline. And with rare exception, many of those exceptional filmmakers have rarely found a space on PBS. Ken Burns takes up a lot of space. Nobody's saying he's not good, but if you look at the people who signed the letter, two of whom that I can just call right now, Sam Pollard and Stanley Nelson, get a fair amount of time on PBS. Why then did they sign this letter? Because they know how much absorption Ken Burns is taking up from all the other brilliant people. I'm talking Oscar-nominated, Emmy-nominated. Stanley Nelson has a MacArthur. Don't talk to me about credentials equality. All of these people on that list, it's amazing. It's stunning, the kind of talent that they have. And yet, we are still here and talking about this. And with regard to content in Ken Burns' film, listen, most of the time he's on point. But in 2007, he got in a whole heap of trouble, which he never answered, about his film about World War II, leaving out Latinos. And the response from PBS is the same as the response is now. We're working hard on our diversity. Yeah. We want to make space. So there's a lot to consider, yes, but you know, let's Callie, consider all the facts.
Yeah, Paula Kerger did say she's going to sit down and meet. She's kind of revised her. She got a little angry the first time she revised it. I do want to say, though, that we have done nothing but talk about Ken Burns. They claim that this is not about Ken Burns. For the record, it's all about Ken Burns, regardless of what this group says.
It's about how much space he has. It's really not about the quality of his work.
No, it's resentment that a white guy is getting all this much time.
It's about how much space he has. You know, I'm telling you what it's about, because I just told you.
Yeah, I know. It's about Ken Burns.
There are other people on that list that not only get on PBS, but on other platforms. So they are signing their names to say, the people that I've been in the pipeline programs with still do not have the opportunity.
The only other thing I want to say is I didn't see Asian Americans, but there's a possibility it wasn't as good as some of Ken Burns' films, too.
Well, that is not correct.
You got to throw that out there. I said a possibility.
I will throw that out if it's true. I'm telling you about who's on the list and who signed the list.
Okay, I'm talking about the quality of the film.
I'm talking about that. I'm saying Oscar-nominated Sundance film. Yes, it does. That's what he only has 2 Oscar nominations and some Emmys. I looked. So don't tell me about who's on the list.
That doesn't mean they're all good. All right.
It doesn't, but I'm just telling you that